Many of us struggle with emotions. How many times did you think to yourself, if only I could switch them off, if only I could feel nothing, it would be so much easier, it would be so much better. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you are first time here. My name is Strange, I'm a psychologist, and here we are talking about spiritual psychology, Islamic psychology, Western psychology. We're comparing, we are finding the best techniques and tools that will help us in our daily life and managing emotions, for example. And this is the topic that I would like to focus on today. Many of us struggle with emotions. How many times did you think to yourself, if only I could switch them off, if only I could feel nothing, it would be so much easier, it would be so much better. The reality is we cannot switch off emotions, and emotions, they serve their purpose. They are functioning as something, some kind of mechanisms, and this is what we need to understand. What is that mechanism? How can we deal with it? How can we make those painful emotions subside much quicker? How do you deal with painful emotions? If something happened and you are stressed out, when you feel frustrated, when you feel angry, or when you feel hurt, how do you deal with those emotions? For many of us, it's a different process. For somebody, it means reaching for those snacks, those comforting snacks that are familiar from childhood. And for others, it means reaching to the friend. Maybe you will text to a friend or your mom, and maybe you will talk to them on the phone and expressing your hurt, your anger, and so on. And if somebody is listening to you, that already takes off that burden. For some people, it means they will use something like alcohol or smoking weed or anything like that, that will kind of relax them at that moment and gives that sense of relief. For other people, this might be a bit healthier approach. For example, going to the gym and trying to work it out, those feelings. In any case, many of us suppress our emotions. Why do we do this? Because it's not always we can find that outlet that we can express, that we can share with someone. Partly, we just don't know how to deal with those emotions. If we could turn them off, we probably would. But instead, we suppress them, we repress them, we displace them, we project them onto others. The defense mechanisms, they actually came to us from Sigmund Freud. Some of you like it, some of you hate it. But the thing is, Sigmund Freud brought some useful stuff to us as well, not just the raising eyebrow ones. And defense mechanisms and ego and superego, those concepts are actually from that era. So let's have a look at the most common defense mechanisms that we have today and that we all use. So first of all, we can say that defense mechanisms, they are unconscious psychological strategies we use to protect ourselves from anxiety or unacceptable thoughts. And the first one that we use very common is repression or suppression. There is a little difference between the two. But basically, repression is burying painful memories or feelings. We are pushing them inside, deep, out of those conscious awareness, those feelings, those thoughts, those unpleasant memories, emotions, and so on. So the interesting thing is that in repression, we might not be aware that we buried them deep inside, but they still influence our behavior. Whereas suppression this is where we do it consciously. In repression case, for example, perhaps someone experienced childhood trauma. You may not consciously remember that event, and that could be anything, from some accident, from something tragic in the family, or being treated unfairly by the parent. Perhaps you don't remember what actually happened, but it still affects your behavior. It triggers you in certain situations. And you are not even sure why you are behaving in the way you do, why you're reacting so strongly to some situations. Another one is projection, when we attribute our feelings to someone else. So when you have those undesirable feelings or thoughts of others, when you think that they're annoying or frustrating, or they're criticizing too much, or they're being negative, sometimes this is what we have in ourselves, and we see those undesirable qualities in other people instead of becoming aware that we carry some of those attributes ourselves. For example, a person who feels insecure about their own abilities may accuse others of being incompetent. This is when they project their own insecurities onto others. And another one which we use very often is denial. This is when we refuse to accept a difficult reality. Or perhaps it's some factual information, but we don't like it, so we are not even going to look at it. We will refuse to see it as our reality. We don't want to deal with difficult truth, so we won't. For example, someone who has been diagnosed with a serious illness, they might refuse to accept a diagnosis. They might believe that they're perfectly healthy, even though everyone around them knows that they are not right. And another defense mechanism, which is really great, we all use it, it's called intellectualization. This is when we focus on the logic because we don't like certain things. So we can distance ourselves emotionally from a stressful situation when we focus on facts and logic, instead of feeling those emotions from that situation. For example, a person who is dealing with a breakup, trying to avoid being too sad, being depressed, and instead they will focus entirely on the logical reasons why the relationship broke down, such as we had different goals in life, we weren't suited to each other, and so on. Because when you use that part of the brain which look at logic and facts, then it kind of prevents activating the other side of the brain, which is responsible for emotions. And many of us use humor, jokes to cover pain. You probably know, maybe you are doing this yourself. It's a sarcastic jokes that many of us like so much, but actually there is a pain behind those jokes. So defense mechanisms, they're not bad. They often protect us during trauma or stress. But when we use them long term, they can mask our truth and they can delay our healing. So here's some question for reflection for you. Think about a time when you might have suppressed an emotion to avoid feeling pain or some unpleasant feelings. What was that situation? And how do you see it today? And another question for reflection, if you like, and journaling. Have you ever found yourself frustrated with someone else, but later realized that what you were upset about reflected something in yourself? So that undesirable quality that you found in someone else. If we look at from Islamic point of view, Islamic psychology, then we can say that in Islam we are encouraged to live authentically. We live for Allah alone, not for people's opinions. That can help us to actually stay more grounded with our emotions and frustrations when it comes to other people. There is a deep dignity in aligning your outer life with your inner truth. It's a form of tawheed, which is in Islamic psychology or in Islam, returning to oneness in word, deed, and soul. So we are trying to align what we feel and what we project to the outer world. We are trying to be truthful to ourselves as much as possible. So we will try to avoid those defense mechanisms by being transparent, by being clear about our emotions, what we feel, explaining to other people, in the very appropriate way, of course, with kindness and patience, what we feel and what we are going through. And I will leave this lecture with a very good quote. Be careful who you pretend to be. You might forget who you are. Well, I hope you found this class useful, interesting in some way. Share with others if you feel it will benefit them as well. If there is anything you would like to share, please post in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you in one of our next videos. Thank you for watching.